The first time my mom called me her little provider, I was 12 years old, and handing over the paycheck from my first paper route. At that age, I thought it was love. She hugged me tight, kissed my cheek, and told me how proud she was. But those hugs only ever came on payday. The rest of the week, I was invisible. By the time I was 16, I was working after school at a diner in Cedar Falls, Ohio, bussing tables, washing dishes, scrubbing grease traps, and every cent of it went straight to my parents. I didn't even get to keep tip money. Family first, my dad would say, pocketing the cash before I even got home. And family first always meant them. Never me. Never my little brother, Tyler, either, though he was only 8 back then, so of course he couldn't help. I grew up believing I was responsible for keeping our house from falling apart. Electricity bills, mortgage payments, even groceries. If I ever asked where my parents' money went, they'd look at me like I'd cursed at them. When I was 19, something happened that nearly broke me. I had gotten into a college out of state, University of Michigan, with a partial scholarship. I just needed their signatures for my financial aid forms. That was it. 2 signatures. But they refused. "You're needed here," my dad said. "Your family comes before your little dreams." I begged. I cried. I promised I'd send money home even if I went away. But my mom slammed the folder shut and shoved it back at me. For years later, Tyler got into the same college. They signed his papers instantly. They even co-signed loans for him, bought him a used car, and helped with his dorm move-in. I watched from the parking lot while loading shifts at the diner, trying not to scream. That was the first time I realized I wasn't a child to them. I was a paycheck. It didn't stop when I became an adult. If anything, it got worse. When I was 31, I was working in senior management at a logistics firm in Columbus. Good job. Steady income. Finally felt like I was building a future. My fiancée, Rachel, and I had started talking about buying a house. I was sending my parents $3,200 a month, every month, without fail. Rent money, car payments, medical expenses. I never questioned it. But then Rachel needed surgery, and I told my parents I had to cut it back to $2,000 just for a couple months. That's when everything exploded. My mom called my boss directly. She told HR that I was mentally unstable, that I was stealing from my elderly parents, that I had abused them financially. She cried on the phone about how I was ruining them. I nearly lost my job that day. HR pulled me in, demanded statements, demanded proof. I had to bring in bank records to show I was the one paying them. The shame of sitting in that glass-walled office while my manager scanned through 15 years of transfers. I still taste bile when I think about it. And still, I didn't stop. That's the part that kills me when I look back. Even after that humiliation, I kept sending the money. Because they had trained me to believe if I didn't, I wasn't a good son. Last year, Rachel had another surgery, and I told them I needed to skip just 1 month. Just one. They showed up at my office. They screamed in the lobby, accused me in front of my coworkers of abandoning them. Security had to escort them out. My biggest client happened to be visiting that day. He saw everything. Within a week, that $45,000 account was gone. I remember Rachel sitting on the couch with me that night, holding my hand while I stared at the ceiling, numb. "How long can we keep living like this?" she whispered. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. Then came the night my parents said they were updating their will. It felt like a light at the end of the tunnel. They had always promised me everything someday. The house my dad had built out on 5 acres, the land, the savings. They told me all my sacrifices would be worth it in the end. I clung to that hope like it was oxygen. Rachel and I even postponed starting IVF treatments, because I told her once the will was settled, we'd finally be free. The Sunday dinner when they revealed it is burned into my memory like a scar. My parents were glowing, smiling like they were about to hand me the future I'd earned. Tyler was there too, which should have been my first warning. He only came around when he needed cash. My dad cleared his throat, lifted his glass, and said simply, "Everything goes to Tyler. The house. The land. The investments. The cars." And then he looked right at me. "You'll get the business." The business. His old auto shop. The one that had been shuttered for years. The one drowning in debt. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a curse. And in that moment, sitting at that table, I knew my life was about to fracture completely. But that wasn't the worst of it. Not even close. I thought I had misheard him. "The shop," I said, staring at my dad. "The one that's been closed for years?" Tyler smirked into his drink like he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. My mom leaned across the table, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're so good with money, Aaron. You'll turn it around. Just like you always do." Rachel squeezed my hand under the table. Her nails dug into my skin as if to say, "Don't let them do this to you." "Turn it around," she finally said out loud. "That place has been rotting for years. It's bankrupt. It has liens, debt, environmental violations." My mom cut her off, her smile vanishing like a mask ripped away. "Besides, Tyler will give us grandchildren. You failed us there, too." Her words hit like a knife. Rachel's hand pulled away, trembling. I couldn't even respond before my dad piled on. "Of course, son, while you're getting the shop sorted, we'll still need our monthly support. $3,000, minimum." The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. I had sacrificed everything, my education, my 20s, my career stability, and now they were throwing me scraps while crowning my brother king. I stood up, chair scraping across the hardwood. "This is a joke, right?" "Ungrateful," my dad spat. "We gave you everything." "No, I thought. I gave you everything." But I didn't say it. I walked out, shaking, while their voices chased me to the driveway. In the car, Rachel pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I've been documenting," she whispered. She opened a folder on her screen, bank statements, receipts, recordings. Years of them. My throat tightened. "You've kept all of this? Every transfer? Every paycheck you handed over?" "Aaron, it's over $400,000 across 15 years. I stared at her. I wanted to cry, to scream, to collapse into her arms. But I couldn't move. And then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Martha, my parents' old paralegal friend. "The shop has liens. Don't sign anything. Call me now." My stomach dropped. That night, I sat at my desk until 3 a.m., digging through county records, tax filings, legal notices. The numbers didn't lie. My dad's family legacy was a graveyard. Over $250,000 in debt, plus fines for illegal oil disposal and 3 years of unpaid taxes. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a trap. A prison they expected me to walk into, chained for life, forced to keep bleeding money for them. By the time I closed my laptop, I wasn't numb anymore. I was furious. The next evening, I drove back to their house with a folder of documents under my arm. When I laid the papers on the dining table, my parents looked at me like I had betrayed them. "I've learned from my past mistakes," I said quietly. My voice didn't even sound like mine. My mom's face hardened. "How will we survive if you abandon us?" "The bank is closed permanently," I said. I slid another paper across the table. "Cease and desist. You contact my job again, you contact Rachel again, you harass us in any way, and you'll be in court." Tyler's face went pale. "But you have to take the shop. It's tradition." "Then it's your tradition," I said. "Your inheritance, your debt. Good luck." My dad's face flushed red, veins bulging in his forehead. "We'll destroy you. We'll call your boss again. Try it, I said, calm for the first time in years. This time I have lawyers. And I walked out. Behind me, I heard them turn on Tyler, demanding to know how he planned to pay off the debts. 3 weeks later, Martha called me again. You need to hear this, she said. It's about your grandmother's estate. I frowned. What estate? There was a pause. Then her voice dropped low, like she was afraid someone might be listening. Your grandmother left you a trust. Your parents hid it from you. My blood went cold. And I realized I had only scratched the surface of their betrayal. The worst was yet to come. When Martha said the words your grandmother left you a trust, I thought I misheard her. No, I said flatly. That's not possible. My parents would have told me. Martha didn't even argue. She just told me to come to her office the next morning and bring Rachel with me. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept clawing back to childhood birthdays. I remembered the crisp $50 bills my grandmother used to slip into my cards. I used to dream about saving them for college. But somehow, every time, my mom would take the envelope with a tight smile and say, "We'll keep this safe for you." Safe. I almost laugh thinking about it now. The next morning, Rachel and I sat across from Martha's oak desk. My hands shook so badly I had to shove them between my knees to stop. Martha pulled out a thick folder. Your grandmother set this up when you were born, she said. It was supposed to transfer to you when you turned 25. It started at $120,000. With growth, it should have doubled by now. She pushed the papers toward me. I recognized my grandmother's handwriting instantly. Her looping letters, the same ones from those birthday cards. Then Martha flipped to the withdrawal records. Line after line. Every year since my 25th birthday, money pulled from the trust. Tens of thousands. Every withdrawal stamped with my signature. Except I had never signed a single one. I felt like the floor gave out beneath me. They forged me, I whispered. Rachel's hand clamped down on mine. Keep going, she urged. Martha laid out more documents. Bank records. Transfer sheets. Every dollar funneled straight into my parents' accounts. By the time she finished, the total was over $180,000 stolen. My chest ached so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. All those nights working double shifts, skipping meals, postponing IVF treatments, while my parents bled me dry behind my back. That night, I sat in the dark of our apartment, replaying old memories like a film reel. I remember being 16, standing in line at the mall trying to apply for my first credit card. The clerk smiled apologetically when the application came back declined. "Sorry, sweetheart," she said. "Your credit's trashed." I thought it was my fault. I thought maybe I had bounced a check or something. I went home embarrassed, ashamed. Turns out it wasn't me. It was them. When I showed the forensic accountant, a soft-spoken man named Daniel Ruiz, the trust papers, he shook his head. "This isn't just inheritance theft," he said. "This is full-blown identity fraud. They've been running you like a business." And he was right. Daniel dug deeper. He found credit cards opened in my name when I was just 17. Maxed out, never paid. He found payday loans. Utility bills tied to apartments I had never even seen. Worst of all? The house. The same house my parents always bragged about my dad building with his bare hands. It wasn't even in their name. It was in mine. Daniel explained it like I was a stranger to my own life. They used money from your trust as the down payment. But since you were legally an adult, they needed your signature to close. So they forged it. On paper, you own the house free and clear. I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh that made Rachel's eyes water. I'd been paying rent to live in a house that technically belonged to me. They made me pay for something I already owned. The report Daniel eventually compiled was over 100 pages long. Forged documents, fake accounts, years of theft and manipulation all catalogued neatly in black and white. When he slid the binder across the table, my hands trembled as I flipped through it. Most people never find out, Daniel said softly. They just live with the damage. But you have enough evidence to bury them. That night, Rachel asked me quietly, "What are you going to do?" And I didn't have an answer. Because part of me still wanted to be the good son. Still wanted to believe my parents' lies, that someday it would all make sense, that the sacrifices would be worth it. But as I stared at the binder of evidence, I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. And they weren't going to let go of me without a fight. And I was right. Because the next day, my brother Tyler showed up at my apartment. And he wasn't alone. When I opened the door and saw Tyler on my porch, I barely recognized him. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, and sweat dripped down his forehead even though it was 30 degrees outside. He shoved past me into the living room like he owned the place. "What the hell did you do?" he hissed. Rachel stood up from the couch, tense. "What's going on?" Tyler's eyes darted between us, wild. "The cops called Mom and Dad. They're freaking out. You're trying to put them in jail? Are you insane?" I pointed to the binder of evidence Daniel had compiled, still sitting on the coffee table. "They put themselves in jail when they stole from me." Tyler grabbed it. His eyes scanned the pages, and I watched the color drain from his face. "You're really gonna do this?" he whispered. "You're really gonna ruin this family?" Rachel stepped forward, her voice low and firm. "No. They ruined this family." Tyler dropped the binder like it burned him. "You're dramatic, Aaron. You always were. They did everything for you, and now you want to see them rot. Everything for me." I snapped. My voice shook, but not from fear. From rage. They stole my education. They stole my credit. They stole my future. And they still wanted more. Tyler's lips curled. "You'll regret this." Rachel crossed her arms. "Leave, or I'm calling the police." He stormed out, but not before turning back at the door. "You're destroying us all." The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. My mom had posted on Facebook a long, weepy essay about her ungrateful son who had abandoned his elderly parents after everything they sacrificed. She painted me as a monster, a cold, greedy child trying to steal their home. My aunts and uncles flooded my messages. "How could you do this? Family is everything. Your poor mother is sick and you're suing her?" Even my cousin Jenna texted me, "Is it true you called the cops on Grandma and Grandpa?" Rachel deleted Facebook from my phone before I could spiral. "They don't matter," she said. "Focus on the facts." But it didn't feel like facts mattered anymore. It felt like the entire world was being told a story where I was the villain. Detective Isabella Cruz called that afternoon. "I interviewed your parents," she said. "They denied everything. Claimed you gave them permission to manage the trust. They even produced a letter with your signature." My stomach dropped. A letter. Typed, with a forged signature. "We're sending it to handwriting experts. But I need you to be prepared. They've lawyered up." Of course they had. My parents had hired Donald Sykes, a local attorney infamous for taking the ugliest family cases. 2 days later, my boss called me into his office. He closed the door and looked uncomfortable. "Your parents reached out again," he said carefully. "They said you're unstable, off your medication, making false accusations." "I've never even been on medication," I snapped. He sighed. "I don't want to get involved in your family issues, but it's disruptive. Take a few days off. Sort this out." I walked out of that office numb. The same office where I had built a career, bled hours into promotions, proven myself over and over. Now even that was slipping. That night, someone slashed all 4 of my tires. The security cameras in the garage malfunctioned that exact day. Rachel wanted to pack a bag and stay in a hotel. I refused. If I run now, I'll never stop running. Instead, we changed the locks, installed a doorbell camera, and slept with the lights on. But sleep didn't come. Every creak of the building made me flinch. The harassment escalated. Letters from their lawyer, settlement offers that were nothing but veiled demands. They'd admit to taking $50,000 and repay it slowly if I dropped the charges and resumed monthly payments. I laughed when I read it. They still thought I was their ATM. Then my dad showed up at Rachel's workplace. Told her co-workers she was manipulating me. Told them she was after my money. Rachel came home in tears, humiliated. That night, she broke. Maybe we should just settle, Aaron. Maybe it's not worth it. Her voice cracked on the words, and it nearly broke me. But I shook my head. They've taken enough. I won't let them take you too. Detective Cruz called with an update. The handwriting expert confirmed the trust signatures were forged. And the timing of the withdrawals? They'd stopped exactly 6 months ago, right when my mom had her stroke. They were setting you up, Cruz said grimly. I think their plan was to flip it. Claim you were stealing from them. The stroke threw it off. It all made sense. The lies, the manipulation, the sudden urgency around the will. But knowing the plan didn't make me feel safer. Because the next week, Rachel came home pale as a sheet. Our apartment door, she whispered. It was open when I got here. Nothing's missing, but... I didn't need her to finish. We both knew what it meant. They wanted us to know they could reach us anytime. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if money was really all they were after. The night Rachel found our door open, I knew this had crossed a line. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. And if they couldn't control me, they'd destroy me. Detective Cruz agreed. This is escalating. They're not just trying to intimidate you financially, they're trying to break you. Maybe worse. That word, worse, kept me awake for days. And then the rail bomb dropped. Daniel, the forensic accountant, called. His voice was tight, urgent. Aaron, your parents took out multiple life insurance policies on you. Over $1 million in coverage. Premiums paid with money from your trust. I froze. Why would they insure me? His pause told me the truth before he said it out loud. If something happened to you, they'd cash out. I hung up, shaking so violently that Rachel had to hold my face in her hands just to steady me. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It wasn't me being dramatic. My own parents had set up a payday on my death. 2 weeks later, police cars pulled up to my parents' house at dawn. I sat in my office, phone pressed to my ear, as Detective Cruz narrated. We're taking them in now. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, insurance fraud. Bail's possible, but the evidence is overwhelming. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling nothing. Nothing except relief. But of course, even handcuffs didn't stop them. My mom called from jail, sobbing into the phone. You're a monster. I wish I'd never had you. Tyler is my only real child. You'll regret this when we're gone. I hung up without saying a word. Tyler bailed them out with his car as collateral. Weeks later, he showed up at my work with 2 men I didn't recognize, muscle, the kind that doesn't smile. Security blocked them at the lobby, but Tyler shouted up at my window. You ruined everything. If you don't fix this, I'll fix you. That was the last straw. Detective Cruz arrested him for making terroristic threats. The family that once prided itself on being respected was unraveling in front of the entire city. Court moved fast. My parents pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. They signed over the house, which, technically, had always been mine anyway, and were sentenced to 20 months in prison plus probation. Tyler got 6 months for his threats and a criminal record that would haunt him for life. And for the first time in decades, I was free. When Rachel and I finally walked through the house without them there, it didn't feel like a dream home. It felt tainted, haunted by lies and manipulation. So we sold it. We used the money for a fresh start in a new city. A small home, nothing fancy, but ours. Paid for with clean money, no forged signatures, no blood debt. Rachel and I started IVF again. The first round failed. The second ended in heartbreak. But we kept trying. And this time, every dollar went to our future, not their greed. And when we finally heard the words "you're pregnant," I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Sometimes, I think about them. About my mom, now working in a grocery store she once said she was too good for. About my dad, his pride shattered, blaming everyone but himself. And about Tyler, who disappeared into debt collectors and burned bridges. None of them have met my children. None of them ever will. Because I finally learned the truth, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who doesn't bleed you dry. I thought the worst thing my parents ever did was make me their ATM. I was wrong. The worst thing they did was teach me to believe that love had to be earned with money. And it took me 35 years to finally unlearn it.